And welcome back to the podcast. This is Matt Cuda, the voice of reason in the wildlife photography realm. Bluebirds, salamanders, and waterfalls. So first I wanted to talk about the whole loss of my data, where I'm at with that whole debacle. Well, as of today, about 30 minutes ago, all my data is back, and I'm moving over. During the interim, I actually used Camera Raw to process my images, and so I just finished up moving those over, and now everything, well, almost everything, is moved over completely to the new drive. So glad for that. That's all done, out of the way. Time to move on. So I've got a project coming up. I've got a body of work that I'm interested in doing, and I thought I would share a little bit about that. I'm not going to explain where I'm going and give away the location and my idea, but there is a place that I know of that has a lot of wildlife, and it's a place that I have explored from time to time, but I don't really go there often like I should. And my plan is to actually make that into a project, into a body of work, and I'm actually planning on getting required permits and all that kind of stuff for it if necessary, and really going at this thing full bore. But what I want to do is I want to document and explore all the different species of animals that exist in this not horribly remote, but in this area that is just abundant with wildlife. And so I want to document that, and I want to write about it. I want to do a lot of photography in there, some videography. There's going to be a lot on the white-tailed deer. There's going to be a lot on birds in that area. There's going to be probably some information on fish in that area, and photographs of fish and so forth. So it's going to be a fairly large body of work, and I really want to get started on it, but it's going to require some really solid planning, and we're talking maybe a 2-3 year commitment easily on this. Going at various times as I can muster time, going in there and just doing my thing. So that's kind of exciting. It may go nowhere. I may wind up saying, you know what, it's not worth it. I'll scrap it. But it's good. It's going to give me something to do. It's going to give me something that doesn't cost a lot of money, hopefully. And I think it may be something that you'll enjoy along the way. So there's that. Have a trip to Pennsylvania coming up in June, and I use that time to see my parents up there. But I also use it to explore nature in that area as well. And we may be able to get some raptor photography in this year. Not really holding my breath, but that's a possibility. So that's all coming up. I'm still working with the A7R3, still working with testing that. You're going to hear more about that today in the main topic. So without further ado, let's get into the main topic. Well, there's truly two main topics today, but the first topic I want to cover is the Bluebird project. So every year, that I add to my body of work on the Bluebird project, and that is simply the documentation spanning many, many years. Started back in, probably 2014 maybe, when I started that, and still going, and I still continue to document. Even this year, I'm documenting the mating pair that I photograph around my nest box. And my goal there is just to document the nesting, document overall behavior, and document that through, of course, my photography, books, and so on. So that body of work is continuing. I just wanted to, kind of let you know about that. And there may be a special book coming out about that. I'm not sure at this point. I'm dabbling with that whole idea. So the main topic, let's get on to that. So I had planned this trip to Catawba Falls here in western North Carolina. And it's a falls I had never photographed before. It happens to be a photogenic waterfall. And I left. It was a perfect day. Absolutely perfect day. Cloudy, raining on and off. Very late rain on and off. But very cloudy. Very overcast. Nice lighting. Perfect day for waterfall photography. So I started my trip. And I even got to leave later because it was cloudy. So I didn't have to leave till 6 o'clock. In the morning. Got there about 8:15. Well, I pulled in and noticed that, it appears it's closed. And I just sat there for a second and I was like, really, guys? What is going on here? Right? So, come to find out, I did research later. And they're doing renovations to make it easier to access. You know what, guys? I am so tired of these dumb renovations that they do to these waterfalls to make them, quote, better for the public. And all they do is just destroy nature. They go in there and they put these stupid viewing decks in. And they try to make them handicap accessible. But to be honest with you, a lot of times they're not handicap accessible. I mean, they're just not. And they keep proclaiming that these things are. And all they're doing is just destroying habitat and marring up nature. That's all that they're doing. They put these wide roads in and they put these viewing decks in there. And it just causes all kind of problems. Now, I'm all for making things handicap accessible. But if you're going to make it handicap accessible, then do it right. Don't do this half-done job where you can barely get in there as it is, and I don't know. It just irritates me. I've only one time seen a renovation of an area successful, and that was when they cut a trail, and this wasn't a handicap thing. This was just cutting a trail into the Lower Cascade Falls up at Hanging Rock. That was the only time I've ever seen something that they've done that was just amazing, right? They always spend all this time, and they build these nature trails where there's no nature on. Have you ever noticed that? They build these, like, they go through all this expense and just detail about, all these animals that are supposedly there and all this stuff. Well, yeah, they might be there, but they lead you to believe you're going to be able to see these things, and it just doesn't work out like that. Anyway, I digress, but that just really irritated me. So anyway, at that point, I'm determined to not make a bad day worse. So I remember that only 20 minutes away from that location was another falls called Tom's Creek Falls and Trail. And I hadn't been there in 10 years to photograph that. Last time I was there, it was pouring rain. So my pictures were terrible. It was a long time ago. The camera, I got water droplets on my camera and didn't realize it. And it made an absolute mess. So this time I brought everything I would need. I brought my towels. I brought, I wore a raincoat. And I got hip waders and all that. By the way, guys, well, let's just go back. So I arrived at the falls, Tom's Creek Falls, about 25, 30 minutes later. Got out of my car, and the first thing I did, I put on my raincoat, which is really just looks like a pullover windbreaker, but it's waterproof. So I did that, and I also did something different this time. I used to trout fish quite a bit when I was younger, and so I've always had a set of hip waders, and I brought those with me this time, and I put these. I don't want to get it wrong. Let me look here. I put these goat head sole spikes on it so that it wouldn't slip on the creek bottom. And I put those on and walked down the trail. By the way, they make it nice. Those goat head sole spikes, they make really nice non-skid spikes for any kind of like hiking shoe or anything. So I go down the trail, and the trail starts looking different to me. And I'm thinking to myself, what the heck is going on here? Is this the right trail? Well, like I said, it had been 10 years since I'd been there. Well, they had done, quote, renovations to this trail as well. So, one, they made the trail longer. They put some little switchbacks in and stuff. I think they were trying to make it handicap accessible, and it wasn't. It wasn't at all. Like, I got to, they'd put they'd put like a platform in so you could view the falls. Well, they put the platform in so far back, you really can't view the falls from there. And not only that, but you can't even get in there if you had a wheelchair or a rascal or whatever. You couldn't get in there. So I'm like, well, that's just dumb, right? But the landscape looked a lot different because they've been renovating it, and I just thought to myself, what have you guys done to this place? Again, I'm sorry, but it just irritates me. And anyway, so I get there and I get set up. I take some video for the YouTube channel, and I go ahead and I take some establishing shots and so forth of the falls. I move down a little closer and I start, getting more and more into it. And I'm also experimenting with the 24 millimeter Samyang 1.8 lens as well, which, by the way, is a very sharp lens. I was very impressed with it. I'll be having a review of that probably in the next, I don't know when, probably the next month or two. I'm also using heavily on this trip the A7R3, the Sony A7R3, and I'm shooting uncompressed at full resolution. So I really want to get everything this camera can give me. And so I'm shooting all the falls photographs with that. However, this falls did not lend itself well to the 24 millimeter. Oh, excuse me. So I ended up using my 50 quite a bit, my nifty 50 1.8, and I actually used my Sony 200 to 600 for some isolation shots, and we're going to see those here in a minute. I just spent the day there. I because I slowed down. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. I really slowed down when I do a waterfall. I just slow down a lot compared to when I'm doing animals and wildlife and so forth. I just slow down a lot, especially when it's a long day like this where you've got all clouds. And I just slow down a lot, and I just think about and explore the area. And because of that, I came across salamanders, some black-bellied salamanders, and they were actually up on the rocks is how I found them. And they will do that, apparently. I'm not a herpetologist or anything like that, but or herpetology. I guess it's herpetology. Yeah. It's not herbs, it's herbs. No. Anyway. So anyway, I digress. That gave me a good opportunity to photograph them with my macro lens. So I get my macro lens out, and about a year ago, this is the Canon 2.8 macro that I've used for several years. I love it. It's so sharp. I love that lens. So I go to use it, and it's firing away, but I noticed that the aperture is not changing when I change the aperture. It says it's changing, but it never actually does. Well, about 2 years ago, I dropped that lens in the parking lot down in Florida. and it took a good wrap, but I thought it was back to working again. Well, it's gone out now, so I had to shoot everything at f2.8, and so when you see the shots of the salamander, you'll understand, you know. And I didn't feel like photo stacking with these this time, so everything was shot at f2.8, which is kind of cool. Really blurry backgrounds. I had to sharpen them a little bit more because of that. Not because of the blurry backgrounds, but because of the f2.8, I had to do some sharpening, extra sharpening. That lens is not quite as sharp at 2.8 as you really want it to be, but I don't normally shoot that lens at f2.8. I shoot at f5.6 typically, or greater. Usually I'm around f8. So I fiddled and goofed around with that thing for, I don't know, 30 minutes, and I finally was just like, yeah, I'm gonna have to get a new one. So I ordered a new one last week, new to me anyway. It's used from KEH. I just hate this thing. You hate to spend money on a lens that you already own just because it broke. I mean, is there anything worse than that? Because you can't get it repaired because it's going to cost more to repair it than to buy a used one. And you just feel terrible about it. It's the worst feeling ever. So anyway, I got that problem solved because I was supposed to do butterfly macros with it this month. So that, I mean, my plans keep going awry here. Anyhow, so back to the Tom's Creek. I spent probably till, I don't know, 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then I headed home. And, the big takeaway from that day was just being able to relax, enjoy nature. Tom's Creek is a pretty waterfall, but it's not a oh wow waterfall. The water flow is very good. You may be able to see that. You can go out and check out my YouTube video as well, and you'll be able to see video of it. And it's a pretty waterfall. It's just, what I don't like about Tom's Creek is the base is wide, and so the water is not forced into a small creek. It reminds me a little bit of what's the name of that? Crabtree Falls, where at the bottom it's real wide and you don't get good water flow right there, and then it picks up speed as it narrows right there. So that's kind of what happens with Tom's Creek as well. So I'm not in love with it, but it's a nice place, and you should try to go there and photograph it sometime. So what I want to do now is just go out and look at a couple of the shots. There'll be links in the show notes you can click on, and I will be right with you. Okay, so the first photograph here, I wanted to look at just 4 images today, and the first image here is kind of what the overall falls looks like, and it's a pretty waterfall. I mean, you can't take it away. You can't take anything away from it. But you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Down there at the base, it's a very wide area, and this photograph doesn't even do it justice in that respect. This was taken with my 50mm Canon at f14, ISO 100 at a half a second, and I think the flow looks really good. Got a little bit of soaking in there, but not too much. Still got detail on the water. The greenery is beautiful. There's some little white flowers along there, so it's a pretty shot. But it really could use more greenery around the base, I think, and to really give it some pop. The rhododendron there's not even a lot of rhododendron around the base, and so it's harder to get the rhododendron in the shot even. So it is what it is. It's a pretty waterfall. It's not an amazing waterfall. But that's kind of the general shot there. Okay, the next shot. This is an isolation shot. This is something I will do with most waterfall photographs that I do. By the way, these are shot with polarizers to cut down on reflections off the water. This is a typical isolation shot. But what is not typical about this is I shot it with my 200 to 600. I did shoot at 200 millimeters, f14, 1.6 seconds at ISO 50. And I just really like to do these. It really makes the waterfall, to me, come alive a little bit more. It makes it more dainty, more artsy, if you will, more impactful in some ways, but really more beautiful than impactful. So that's that image. The next image is going to be this is more of a documentary image. Now, this was taken with my Canon 100mm macro at f2.8. I did focus stack slightly here to get a little more depth of field. What this is, and I thought I would talk about this a little bit. Tom's Creek, the historic aspect of Tom's Creek Waterfall is that once there was a thriving mica mine. And mica is this mineral that flakes off. It's flaky and it's clear. It's nearly clear. And it's like glass. And when you pick a piece of it up and you look at it and feel it, it almost feels like plastic. It's one of the most interesting minerals I think I've ever seen that's worth pretty much nothing. Obviously we have things today that are man-made that replace this. There's really not much call for mica anymore. And so here's this old mine and what's left of the mine. And here you can see it just embedded into the rock. This was a boulder, maybe 2 feet across. This is probably only about, I don't know, an inch, maybe an inch wide slab, or not slab, but just, I don't know what you want to call it, but piece of mica, I guess is the best way to say it. So look for the, obviously this is not a Pulitzer Prize winning image, okay, and I don't think anybody expects it to be, but what it does do is it helps tell the story of Tom's Creek and what Tom's Creek is. And to this day, you can walk around there and just you'll find mica on the ground and just where it's washed in there. I mean, it's still there. It's one of the few places you can actually still see the quote gems that were mined. Okay, the next image. This is a black-bellied salamander. I shot this with the my 7 Mark III, not my 7R, but my Sony A7R3. A7 III, not the A7R3. Man, I'm tongue-tied today, guys. Shot it at it's set. Now this is interesting. This was with my 100mm macro, which kept sticking at f2.8. Well, here it's showing f3.5. Well, I never ever had 3.5 selected. So what it is, I think, is you've got a very sticky aperture in there. It's probably been damaged. It's probably no longer fully functional. Probably if you knew what you were doing, you could just replace the aperture unit on that and you'd be good to go. But I'm not, guys, I'm not doing it. I got enough stuff to do, right? I'm not even going to try that. So, 100mm, of course, I just said that. It's 1/100th of a second with IBIS turned on, in-body image stabilization, handheld at 1/100th of a second, ISO 400. Try to do that without image stabilization. See what you get. But what I like about this image is, first, it's a salamander. I mean, they're just cool, right? Everybody likes salamanders. But one thing I never noticed, and like I said, I don't take a lot of photographs of amphibians, but one thing I noticed was that the eyes look like an amphibian. The eyes look like the eyes of a frog, don't they? I thought that was really interesting. And you just never know what you're going to see on the trail. And this is a perfect example of that. I hope that it inspires you to get out and take a look at the cool stuff that's out there. So that's pretty much it from my trip to Tom's Creek Waterfall. I'll also put a couple bonus shots out there of my Bluebird project this year you can take a look at. I've got a couple Eastern Bluebirds that came out quite well. I have one where the Bluebird is launching off the nest box backward. It almost looks like, you know how like when you're a kid and you would kind of jump off the diving board backward a little bit and kind of turn. That's what he's doing here, except he can do it right. He can fly, right? So I'm going to put that out there too, just as a bonus. But guys, it's hot and heavy photography for me on this end. I'm enjoying myself fully, enjoying the new A7R III, enjoying my old A7 III. Hey, let me tell you something about the A7 III real quick. That is not a back seat. That has not taken a back seat to the A7R III. I'll tell you where it comes in really handy, and that is photographs like the black belly salamander, where you're going to need a higher ISO. How about especially the Bluebird project, where you need a high ISO for these flight shots? I mean, we're talking 1/4000th of a second on these flight shots, sometimes up to 1/5000, to really, really freeze action on these birds. They fly very quickly. So the A7 III is by no means retired. It's got a faster autofocus. It's got better ISO performance. But when it comes down to doing what I was doing with the Waterfall, the A7R III blows it out of the water with that 40 megapixel sensor. So that's kind of my initial feelings on it and where I'm going with all that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one. It's like I said, photographing hot and heavy here. Everything's going great. I'll tell you what, one thing I wanted to say before I leave, and I'm gonna put a link here in the show notes, is I'm an affiliate for Topaz Labs. And I got to tell you something. I don't normally seek out companies that I want to be an affiliate with. But Topaz Labs has put out such amazing products that I used the products for 2 years. Well, no more than that. It's been about 3-4 years. And they just continue to innovate and continue to get better. If you're not using AI denoise, at the very least, you are missing out. If you are a wildlife photographer and you are not using AI denoise, you've got to do it. It is a game changer. I believed in it so much. I said, hey guys, I love your product. They approached me first. They approached me about 2 years ago and said, hey, do you want to do, will you be an affiliate for us? And I was like, well, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be a company shill. And, I just don't want to do reviews and so forth. Well, 2, 3, 4 years later, I'm like, I do want to be an affiliate because I really believe in this product. It's very rarely do I believe in something like this to the point where I am willing to take money to tell you guys stuff about it. I mean, and when I say take money, it's just a little kickback I get off sales from it. It's a small commission. It's not anything big, but I believe in it that much, and I would never sell you guys anything I didn't believe in. And I'll tell you what, it's a game changer. You ask any wildlife photographer out there, any nature photographer out there, hey, what do you think about Topaz denoise AI? They'll be like, dude, it's awesome. I mean, I have yet to hear, I was just listening to, what are these guys? I kind of know them a little bit. I've talked to them online a little bit. The Wild and Exposed guys. They're like, yeah, it's an awesome product. It is. It's an awesome product, guys. Anyway, I didn't mean to belabor that, but if you don't know about it, you need to go out and check out my YouTube tutorials that I've done on some of the earlier versions of denoise AI. It is mind-numbing what it can do. So go do that. I have a link in the show notes that you can use to get 15% off. And I think the discount code, after you click the link, I think you can use the discount code, what is it now? Friend15, I think, will get you 15% off. So do take advantage of that. Thanks for listening. Make it a great day and get out there and enjoy nature.